Hello and welcome again. This is the fourth introduction to the first day of Genesis, discovering ancient Greek via Genesis. And we're going to look at the third verse of Genesis today. But before I do that, let's review what we've already done. En archei poiesen hoteos ton oranon kai ten gein. In the beginning he created, the God did, the heaven and the earth. Hedegei ein ahoratos kai akadaskuastos. In the earth she was invisible and uncontained. Kai skotos epano tehis abuso. And darkness upwards over top of the unfathomable deep. Kai pneuma teo epeperito epano to hudatos. And the breath of God was carrying itself upwards over top of the water. Okay, the first thing I want to look at is, you notice the verb here starts with epsilon p, which is a contraction of epsilon p iota, meaning upon or on top of. And you have the same beginning of the word following. Epano, over top of. So last time in my translation I didn't, you see, Greek likes to double the words here for emphasis, so we're going to do that here as well. Okay, and the breath of a God was carrying itself, whoops, let's get this self over top. Upwards over top of the water. So basically the water is the word they're using, or the author of Genesis is using to describe the primordial substance from which the universe was created. And the breath of a God was what started things getting into motion. The creative process. Okay, let's have a closer look at this chart here of nouns. Let me highlight the endings here. Darkness, skotos, ends in an omicron sigma. Now we've seen this ending before in these words, these masculine words that belong to the second group of nouns in Greek. However, in this case, the authors of Genesis used a version that is part of the third group, which are neuter nouns ending in omicron sigma. So that's something you got to be very careful to distinguish. can be confusing at times. And to add more confusion, there is a version of this word that belongs to the second group, but we'll show you in a little while why the authors of Genesis use the version that's in the third group, the neuter version. Okay, let's highlight this one too. This is also a neuter noun in the third group, ending in ma. And the word for water, also a neuter word in the third group, ending in or, hudor. But you notice the separating version ends in hudatos. Atos is the ending here. And here, for abuso, you've got the Omicron upsilon ending. As we mentioned before, this is also part of the second group of Greek nouns. In the second group, most of these nouns are masculine, but this is an exception. There are a few that are feminine, and this is one of them. So let's try to reconstruct what the word would be in the focus case and in the target case. Okay, we don't need the highlight here because it's not actually in the text. Okay, now if we go back here, we'll see that the word for the, for a feminine noun is this, he. So we're going to copy that and replace this the with the version of the for the focus. Now let's look at the ending. The ending has to be different, and from here we can see that Omicron sigma is the ending for most second group nouns, and that's the case here as well. Okay. One other point though. Here when you have Omicron upsilon, that is like a long vowel. But if you just have the Omicron sigma, you're going to a short ending. short syllable ending. So in this case, the pitch goes back. So we can replace the epsilon that with the upward pitch. And then we put the upward pitch on the alpha. And I don't have it nearby, but it's in the vocabulary. Just copy it from here. And we'll paste it. Bring it to the same size and unbold it. Okay, abusos, the abyss, or the unfathomable deep. Okay, so let's see if we can get the target version in here. So we know that feminine target version of the is teen. And the ending, the target ending for a second group noun is omicron nu. So we just need to change the sigma to a nu. There we go. So abusos, tein abuson, teis abuso. So those are 3 of the different cases of the word for abyss. Okay, I think we'll move on now to the 3rd verse of Genesis. And here it is. Okay, the first thing we want to do is highlight the nouns. And we'll do that here. This one we've seen already. And this one is new. And this is the same one as above. Okay, now let's highlight. Okay, well, I don't know if we need to highlight the word for the. I think we use this version of green. Is that about right? Yeah, I think that's about right. And now we'll do the verbs. This one is a verb. Did I get the right color there? Yep. This one is a verb. And This one is a verb. Okay. So let's look at the nouns first. This one we already know. We have it up right at the top here. The God, Theos. So this would be the same God who created the heaven and the earth. And we're going to see how he did it in this verse. And here are the verbs involved. The first one is pen. And okay, let's go to the verbs. Here we go. Okay. It means he said. From, you see I have a star here on the base verb because I'm speculating what it might have been. It's not really ever used in classical Greek or Koine Greek. So probably started with a wow or W sound, digamma. But then that dropped out, and to make it into a past tense, it became eipe. So let's look at it in the vocabulary. Under verbs. Okay. There we go. So it's under past specific, and I've got in brackets here strong acting. Why do I call it strong? Well, just like in English, you have strong and weak verbs. For example, swim is a verb, but if in the past you say swam, so that's a strong version. You don't say swimmed, which would be the weak version, but you say play and played. That's a weak version of the past form of the verb. Anyways, you'll get to see this more clearly gradually, so you have to be patient for now. Just trust me that this heipe means he said. I should say he said. He said, or he spoke. Okay, or he sounded. I believe I said. Okay, he said, he sounded. Okay, let's do the translation. Okay, we can make that a little smaller. Is that the same? Here I made it 18. Alright, it doesn't really have to be 18 here because these lines are very short. Just for consistency, let's make it 18. try to keep it under the actual words. Okay, what did he say? Geneteto pos. Pos. Geneteto pos. Okay, what does that mean? Well, first we've got the word pos, which means light. Okay, I should have could highlight that. And so we know what the noun is. It's light. Let's take a look at it in the vocabulary. Where are you? It's a third group. Also a neuter. Just happens to be. Not all nouns in the third group are neuter, but the ones we've encountered so far are neuter. And it means light or brightness. And it's contracted from the word paus. And so the digamma drops out, becomes paos. And that got squished together and came pose, pose, pose. I always try to aspirate the P. Okay, some of the English derivatives are phosphorus, light carrier, or photon, photograph, photosynthesis, and some related words. Pao or paino means to shine, give light, or reveal. Panos is a torch or a lantern. And pane, panos, panon, or potene, potenos, potenon means bright or shining. Okay, now let's go back and look at those verbs. Those two verbs you see are kind of similar. They both have the gamma, epsilon, nu sort of as a base element. And let's go look at the verb chart. And here it is. So the base verb looks kind of funny. Gignomai, although it's a very common word in Greek, which means come into being or come into existence. And the two versions we see here are in the third person and the first one, it came into being, and the second one, which actually preceded it, make it come into being. So there's a difference in tone here. This last one is a commanding tone. And you know what? I forgot to put it that way in the vocabulary. And don't know how quickly I can do that here. I meant to do it before I start this. Okay. Vocabulary verbs. Okay. Let's unhighlight it. We got this right size here, 18. Let's make it the same size as the others. And let's give it a classification. So it is specific. And it is it's acting, well, it's self-centering. Here it's related to this guy. But it also has a tone, and that tone is a commanding tone. Try to put that in. We don't need that bolded. Make it come into being or make it come into existence. And, whoops, should have put a closing bracket here. Okay, so here we have the past specific self-centering version of this verb that ends in omai. That is actually, yeah, that's a self-centering ending, because coming into being is kind of self-centering. Kind of reflexive. Supposedly, you come into being in your own interest. So, geneto means it came into being, it came into existence, it became, it happened, or it came to pass. And it comes from the verb gignomai, which means come into being, come into existence, become, happen, or come to pass. And it's related to these other Greek words. Genesis, which is the name of the book we're looking at, which means the coming into being, origin, source, creation. And we get the English version of the word Genesis. And we have genao, give birth or beget. And we get the word generate from that. Genea means birth. Genea Logia is a tracing of one's descent. And you get the English word genealogy from that. Genealogy. And genos means offspring or descent, race, kin, or clan. You get words like gene or genetic. And all that applies, same thing applies to the commanding version of it. It's all descended from the same word. Okay, so let's do the translation now. And he said, the God did. Let's put that in the smaller font. Make it and we put it's a command, so we put an exclamation mark. Whoops. Let's put an exclamation mark. How do we get an exclamation mark here? Gotta get this one there. Okay, make it come into being. Light. And then the next line. Let's just copy this. And it came into being. Light. Kai pen hoteos gen geneteto pohus kai geneto pohus. And he said, the God did, make it come into being, light. And it came into being, light. All right, that's kind of a profound look at creation. So when God spoke, who was he speaking to? If we look at the Canaanite version, the Elohim was speaking, which is the family of the creator god El. They were speaking to themselves, I suppose, saying, let's have light come into being. Notice it's usually translated let light come into being, as if it's not in a commanding tone, as if light was just somehow bottled up and you just had to let it out for it to come into being. But I think the commanding tone means there's an element of power that comes associated with the verb. So you better do this or else you will regret it. So in the Christian version, this is the God, the one and only God, the Creator God. Perhaps he's speaking to his angels. Perhaps the angels were with him. The angels that may have been the Elohim, the wife and the children of El, converted or changed into angels, subservient to God, and they became the agents that made light come into existence. And light came into existence. So, the breath of God, the breath of a God, pneumateo, has been likened to, in Christian theology, to the Holy Ghost. And let's take a quick peek at an image of creation here. There we have the Holy Ghost in the form of a dove flying above the primordial waters, substance from which the universe was created, and coming out of a vesica piscis, the birth portal of the universe. And I could go on about that for some time, but for now I'm just going to leave that. We can discuss it more in future. And I'm going to end this version, this tutorial for now, and we'll continue with the creation story in the next video. Bye for now.